Be introducing our speaker, our own Bruce Leventhal here. What he says is that his website has the tagline, "I'm an educator, naturalist, and photographer. I believe that it is possible to speak with images and paint with words." That motto accurately describes my motivation as a teacher, scholar, and artist. I grew up in New York City, moved to 29 Palms when I was 12, was off to Los Angeles at 14, and did my BS degree at UC Irvine following high school. All the moving and reconstruction of social groups in my formative years have had a profound impact on how I view the world today. I'm a trained scientist with undergraduate and graduate degrees in biology that emphasized ecology, evolution, and behavior. My undergraduate research focused on the impact of high-density nesting by Alaskan pelagic bird species, while my graduate studies examined how plant choices made by egg-laying monarch butterflies impacted the development and survival of their larval offspring. In between the pursuit of my 2 academic degrees, I went to graduate school to become a credentialed science teacher in Minnesota. I leveraged my love and passion for science and nature as a way to motivate disinterested adolescents to think critically about their world. So while I am proud of my degrees earned at UC Irvine and the University of Minnesota, I'm most proud of the 31 years I spent in public education. Teaching young people and preparing them for life beyond home is more gratifying than my words can convey. Throughout my nomadic youth, college, research, and teaching, nature photography was the one thread that grounded me. I purchased my first camera with bar mitzvah money in 1978 and have been making pictures ever since. I've exhibited my work in galleries, coffee shops, and libraries throughout Minnesota and have begun to seek venues to share my work here in Santa Cruz. I've been published in multiple magazines, and my images can be seen throughout many locations on the web. In the end, my writing, my blogs, and my self-published books have the same goal. I seek to excite the reader and viewer about nature and promote a type of awe that might lead to conservation.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being interested, I hope. And I'm really excited to present this presentation to you. When I joined CODA almost a year ago, I was really excited to find this community. One of the things that I actually love about this community is it's a non-competitive photo group. When you look at many photo clubs, it's all about getting the award, the golden horse for showing your work and being the winner. And it turned me off to photo clubs. And when I learned that this was non-competitive and it was photographers sharing with photographers, I got really excited. And I want to share a part of the world that I don't think many of you have spent, and I could be wrong, but have spent a lot of time with a camera. So I'm going to begin by asking, how many of you have been to Minnesota or South Dakota or North Dakota? Excellent. How many of you have gone with the purpose of taking pictures? Okay. I am hoping to inspire you to decide that this is a worthy destination. And what I'll add is it's a worthy budget destination and one that you can put into another trip or a part of a bigger trip. So I'm going to take you to Flyover Country. This is what I saw on my way to work every day. And you'll see a lot of pictures of things that were on my way to work. I lived outside the Twin Cities, but once you get 5 miles outside the Twin Cities, it is a rural area with a lot to offer. It's going to take me a number of years before I can get past this statement whenever I talk about my work. This is my wife, Tammy Leventhal. She passed away 2 years ago. It's actually the reason why I'm here. I left Minnesota because I couldn't handle being there without her. She's the reason why I ended up in Minnesota. We eloped. We both met in college. We eloped at UC Irvine, eloped in the Rockies. We met in UC Irvine. She was a scientist as well. And we traveled the world together. And she's my best friend. I miss her terribly. We were together for 34 years, and almost all of the photography you're going to see was done with her. So she was a shooter. She was my other set of eyes. She wasn't as geeky as I am. She wasn't as into the tech as I was, but she absolutely loved being in nature. And so whenever I go out into the field and shoot, I'm with her. I think about her all the time. My biography included some of the publications that I've been a part of. I've published in a magazine called Nature Photographer. In fact, this is this month's issue. It comes out twice a year. I'm going to encourage you to take a look at it. It's a photographic community where photographers write and present articles for photographers. I've been publishing with them since 2008, and it's a good way to share your work. We make all of these pictures in the world. We sit here and we go out and we shoot thousands of pictures. I'm a big advocate of showing your work. You all have a vision. You all see the world with your eyes. Find a place to show your work. I'm so proud of this group for being a part of galleries. And so Nature Photographer is very open to new work, and we can talk about that. I was a field biologist. I consider myself an evolutionary biologist, and I bring that into the field as a shooter. I want to begin with a 2-minute slideshow. The slideshow is a survey of where we're going. And so the pictures will go quick, and I'm going to not talk, and hopefully this will play. You're gonna see these places and some of these organisms again. I want to touch on some of those locations, but I want to give you a smattering of where we're going and the places that I'm hoping that you'll be interested in. So, the first thing I posted is, why are we visiting this location? Why pick here? If you enjoy solitude in nature, if you enjoy being able to take a walk and not seeing throngs of people, these are great locations to be a photographer. You live in the most densely populated state in the nation, right? And so when we go out, we're grateful for those moments when we're alone. And there is that opportunity to enjoy loneliness at its best. And there's a lot of nature in the Midwest. I have divided this talk into 3 chapters. So chapter 1 is going to be on the Northwoods. We're going to focus on a region called the Arrowhead, and it's going to be very landscape heavy. Chapter 2 is going to be on the Badlands, and that's South and North Dakota, and there'll be wildlife and landscape. And then chapter 3 is going to be wildlife in Minnesota. I'm going to begin by telling you this. I consider myself a nature photographer, And I love landscape photography as much as I love wildlife photography. In fact, all of my wildlife photography friends in Minnesota told me that I was a fantastic landscape photographer. And all of my landscape photography friends in Minnesota told me I was a fantastic wildlife photographer. So I'll let you decide what that means. I probably am an average photographer in both, but I enjoy both tremendously. I only have one section of prepared remarks because I didn't want to forget a few of these things. So I'm just going to read this paragraph, and the rest of this is going to be extemporaneous. It would be very difficult to cover the totality of this region's diversity with any fidelity in the limited time we have. As such, this brief slideshow is an attempt to share a broad swath of what one might see if you were to find yourself in the upper Midwest at the right place at the right time. Having lived in and photographed the region for nearly 35 years, I've had the opportunity to put myself in the right place and right time more often than the casual visitor might experience. Nonetheless, there are places you can go to increase the chance of seeing a beautiful scene, beautiful light, and a bit of wildlife. With the short time we have together, I've decided to break the talk down into two general destinations. I'd call them must-see areas that define this part of the country. The work presented is intended to be a survey of subjects one might encounter, were you to make one long trip or two short trips. My hope is to show you many images with a few key brief descriptions. So I'm going to talk less than I'm talking now and kind of flood you with visual. And at the end, I have a link that will take you to a private webpage that I set up where you can get specific information on how to get to these places and what to see. So that way, if you're interested, you can plan a trip. And of course, I'd be happy to help you plan that trip. So I lived in Minnesota, and for those of you who are online and can't see, I'm sorry, I'm using a laser pointer to show the Twin Cities, which is where I lived. And we'll talk more about Minnesota in a bit, but if you want to see forest and landscape, Minnesota is great. If you want to see big wildlife, bison and herds of pronghorns, you got to get into the Dakotas. And so I loved being a Minnesota photographer, but I also love the megafauna. And so I would go to the Dakotas about once a year, either North Dakota or South Dakota. In North Dakota, where I've got highlighted in yellow, so you can see the yellow up here, that's Teddy Roosevelt National Park. And in South Dakota, below that is Badlands, Wind Cave, and Custer State Park. In Minnesota, it's divided into river valleys, which I've got highlighted in orange, and forest, which I've got boreal forest, which is in green, and the stuff that's not highlighted is prairie. The blue streak represents that border between the edge of the state and Lake Superior, where you would have what would be like an ocean landscape, but it's a freshwater ocean or a freshwater sea. So the first part, we're going to concentrate on the area referred to as the Arrowhead. So the Arrowhead's in green and extends from Duluth up to Grand Portage, which is that tip on the far right, and then across to International Falls where it ends. And that's the thick forest of the state. The largest concentration of wolves in the lower 48 live in this triangle. There are between 2,400 and 3,400 wolves that live there. I've seen two, and I've spent a lot of time. If you want to see wolves, go to Yellowstone. This is a very, very hard thing to see. Two lovely little towns, if you like fishing harbor villages, is Two Harbors and Grand Marais. Two Harbors is close to Duluth, and Grand Marais is all the way up at that tip of the Arrowhead. The Boundary Waters canoe area is included in this. Typically, the best way to see that is by canoe, where you put a canoe in the water and you camp going from lake to lake. There's a national park up there called Voyageurs National Park. Again, this is wilderness that connects with Canada, and it's a dramatic landscape. I'm not going to talk about the state parks because I could talk forever about them, but I do have them linked in my at the end. But going from south to north is that list, Jay Cook to Grand Portage. The majority of the images that you're going to see would have been taken in these regions. The Minnesota State Parks, I will say this, are super well suited to people who enjoy camping. Whether you like van camping or trailer camping or backpacking or car camping with a tent. We have some of the most beautiful parks, and they're placed, your campgrounds are placed right on the edge of the water, rocky landscapes, upper vistas. It's a stunning place. And the state has invested a tremendous amount of money in putting together quality state parks. So I recommend taking advantage of that. So it's a little bit, the color's a little bit off here, but this is a view from Oberg Mountain looking at Lake Superior. And if you go out in autumn, this is the type of landscape you'll get. You'll get this mixed deciduous coniferous forest landscape juxtaposed with the beauty of Lake Superior. And we'll talk more about Lake Superior in a bit. I'm going to go through a couple images here, get an idea of the type of pattern. So these are extraction landscapes with a telephoto, from a high point of view. Quintessential birch trees in autumn. One of the beauties of this area is what I call atmospherics. You'll see a lot of atmosphere in my images. I am one to go out in marginal weather and in the cold, in the mornings and the evenings. One of the beauties of this area is how you can use snow as a way to juxtapose against the vegetation, the landscape. So I put this here as a marker to remind me to tell you about light. The light in Lake Superior is marvelous, and much of what you're going to see is edge light, light at the break of the day or at sunset. So this is sunset looking away from Lake Superior, and you'll see a lot of drama in the sky. So the rocks of Lake Superior are about 1.1 billion years old. It's part of a rift. The Lake Superior is part of a rift that had spread, a spreading center, where the continent almost split into two. And so much of what you'll see are basalt rocks. And the basalt rocks have beautiful lichens on them, cracks, and pools that allow you to really put together some interesting compositions. I'm not an ultra wide angle photographer, but this type of place inspires that type of photography. So 14 to 18 millimeter lenses are really, really useful here. Take a moment to talk about this location. This is called Artists Point, outside of Grand Marais. Grand Marais is a fishing village in the northeast corner of the state. It's a tourist town. It's a lovely place to visit. And you could stay in a hotel, motel that is a 3-minute walk from this location and put yourself here at sunrise. So typically, I would wake up at 4 a.m, get out and shoot from 5 to 6, and then go back to bed. And then come back at night and do it again. So it's a beautiful location. You can see again what I mean about the leading lines, the fissures. Because it gets so cold there, you get ice heaves, which cracks the basalt, and there's an opportunity to make some very beautiful compositions. This is winter, and one of the things that Lake Superior does is it creates its own weather systems. And the end result is you can get some really dramatic cloudscapes. You get that point where the water kisses the sky and you start to see the mixing of air masses. This would be sunrise, the dead of winter. This is hollow rock. You have natural bridges. We don't have a lot of these in Lake Superior. Most of them get beaten up. But this one spot just north of Grand Marais is an island in Lake Superior. And it's got that beautiful hole in it. And you can time yourself to get there when the sun is peeking through. There are cabins on one side of it. It is a famous destination for people who know about it. And this is what it looks like in January. Ice. I'm sitting on the lake, on Lake Superior. This is Lake Superior as well. And so I don't know if you can see it, but these are ice heaves. So as the water moves underneath and you get to February, the plates of ice will heave and you'll have these giant layers of ice that's quite dramatic. Yes. Explain to me what you mean by that, because
Needs come up under.
yes, and then they shoot up. Yes, yeah, you get those, especially actually on the Wisconsin side where the Apostle Islands are. But this area tends to freeze, and so when that water is moving, you get these huge surges of ice plates. And the creepy thing is the sound. Like you can hear the crinkle, crinkle, crinkle of the ice as it's heaving and moving. It's eerie. And the beauty of it is nobody ever goes out on those days. So you're alone, right? Well, I think that's the beauty of it. So the beauty of it is that solitude and being able to kind of wander around and feel like you're the only one there. So I'm now going to take you to an icon of the state. This is Split Rock Lighthouse in the back. It was built, I think, in 1905. There were 30 shipwrecks around that time. And so they put this lighthouse up on the cliff. And it was a functioning lighthouse through the 1950s, and then they stopped using it. There's a campground there. And so what you're seeing here is a view from the campground where the waves from the lake kind of flooded over the vegetation and then caked the vegetation in ice crystals. And this lighthouse is stunning. So I don't know if you can see it. So this island is called Ellesmere Island, and the lighthouse is right there. You'll see more pictures of it. But there's just this beautiful expansiveness. So if you like lighthouse photographies, this one is just a stunner. It's absolutely beautiful. They turn the lighthouse on only once a year, and it is to commemorate the Edmund Fitzgerald. And so this can be when the Edmund Fitzgerald sunk in Lake Superior. I think it was 1976 or 73, somewhere around then. And this event will be you and your 500 best friends, because a lot of people come out to see the lighthouse turned on. I actually happened to have been there one day when they were checking to see if it still worked. And that was this night. So. The sequence of images you're going to see now are going to be rivers and waterfalls. And so this is from Jay Cook, which is south of Lake Superior. It's the first state park on my list. And this is the St. Louis River that feeds from Lake Superior downstream, and is one of the best places to go for fall color, where you can have water and fall color juxtaposed with each other. This is Temperance River. There's a giant crack in the earth in Temperance River, and it's filled by water. And during the spring melt, it can be quite a beautiful place to take pictures. The park I've spent the most of my time is Gooseberry State Park, where there's Gooseberry Falls, and there are 3 falls. It's a strikingly beautiful park. The water here is always kind of that reddish tinge to it. And sometimes after a very heavy snow, year of snow, you can get a torrent, where at other times it can be a trickle. So it's extremely variable. It's one of the most picturesque and easy to access places. As I said, there are days when the water is ferocious as it comes down to such a degree that it kicks up mist. And so this is mist from the waterfall that's backlit from the sun. My last two pictures on this sequence are from Grand Marais. Grand Marais has a lighthouse as well. It's not nearly as beautiful as Split Rock, but it's one of those, if you like minimalist photography, it's got a very minimalist feel to it. And being on Lake Superior, you can get some of the most dramatic weather you can imagine. I have yet to photograph it, but there are times when the waves coming off Lake Superior come up higher than the lighthouse. And so you can get these waves crashing onto the lighthouse. So that kind of ends segment one. Does anybody have any questions about the arrowhead? Any of the pictures? Yeah. So yeah, winter is tough. Winter's tough. You gotta really love to be cold. I have spent a lot of time at the end of September and the first couple of weeks of October. Fall colors they rival what you would see on the Northeast. So if you like fall colors and the fallen leaves and you want to be comfortable. So when I say comfortable, 30 degrees. So you want to be comfortable. That's a good time of year. I don't recommend the middle of summer. I'm a teacher. And so the only time I get to be away was summer, Christmas break, Thanksgiving, and spring break. So whenever I took pictures, I had to fight crowds. And I can tell you that the middle of summer, it'll be you and the mosquitoes, and then all the kids who are out for school. So it's an exercise in frustration. But spring, while school's in session, so before Memorial Day, and then after Labor Day, so when school starts, and get out there like third week of September, it's absolutely stunning. Yeah? Anybody else? All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go west, right? So like I said, I'm a wildlife photographer as well. And every once in a while, I would get to this point where I haven't seen anything big. I want to see some big wildlife again. And so then I would head west to the Dakotas. So I just want to put that map up again for you. If you were to fly into the Twin Cities, it's an 11-hour drive. So it's not, it looks short, but it's not short. And it is 11 hours boring drive until you get there. So it is not just prairie, it's cornfields. So it's endless cornfields. If you're making the drive in spring and fall, you've got to contend with wind, tornadoes, storms. This is white knuckle driving because everybody's going 90 miles an hour as the hail is coming down or the wind is whipping up, right? But getting there, once you're there, is absolutely spectacular. It really is. But you got to know that they're long drives, and there's a long drives of nothing. Now, I will say for those of you who are into like the documentary photography, the small ghost town thing, you will love the drive. You just don't want to do it nonstop. Then you want to plan because there are lots of these like one-horse towns, churches backed by endless prairie, towns that have fallen apart or are decomposing. Is fantastic, but it's a long trip to get to the state, to get to the national parks. South Dakota has 3 parks that I'd recommend. So, that's right. So if you're going to fly, I would fly into Rapid City, which is up here. Rapid City is in the Black Hills. That's where Mount Rushmore is. It's absolutely beautiful. Great wildlife destination, great landscape destination. If you wanted to do a cheaper flight, you could fly into Sioux Falls, which is down close to the border. I think Minot has an airport, but I don't. I've never flown into. I've flown into South Dakota. I've always driven into North Dakota because there are things I like to photograph as I make my way. Buffalo Gap National Reserve is on that road, and it's a beautiful, beautiful prairie. In South Dakota, you have Badlands National Park, Wind Cave National Park, and Custer State Park. Those are kind of the things to see. They're the places to go. They're a mix of wildlife and landscape photography. And then in North Dakota, you have Teddy Roosevelt National Park. So these are the park maps, and I show them to you only to point out the town. So if you're not going to camp, places to stay. So Medora is a little town that is outside of Teddy Roosevelt National Park, and there are 3 parts to Teddy Roosevelt National Park. And Medora is a tiny town, but a very comfortable one. Great western town. And then up here is the town of Wall. Now, if you've driven across country, you might have seen the billboard signs for Wall Drug. There may be about 150 of them that you will see. And they give free water away, evidently, in Wall Drug, and a cup of coffee if you just got married. And, they've got real dead dinosaurs and all sorts of stuff. It's a tourist trap, but it's a place to stay if you want to stay in a hotel. I highly recommend staying in the campgrounds in this area. And I'll also add that down here is Cedar Pass Lodge, and they have in the park little rooms that you can stay, and they also have a campground with hookups. So if you're into wanting to be in the park, which I strongly recommend, they have places to stay. Being in the park matters because the best light is in the morning and in the evening. During the day, it can be pretty bleak. I like to photograph bison. The bison you see in these regions are different in how they appear than where you would see them in Yellowstone and the Tetons. And that's because the landscape is dramatically different. So it's the same species, but the type of picture you would make is very different. If you go in spring, you get the opportunity to photograph red dogs, which are the calves. Just like anywhere you can get dangerously close to them, right? And they are dangerous. They will charge you. But you get this very different landscape that supports them. So this is Teddy Roosevelt, which has a little bit more vegetation than the Badlands. You get these expansive, endless spaces where you can set the bison against the prairie landscape and photograph unique behaviors. This is in the Badlands. I always like to use vegetation to kind of frame them, shoot through the vegetation. Again, this is the Badlands. This is Teddy Roosevelt. You get the big herds, again, against a very different backdrop than what you would see in Montana and Wyoming. This is Badlands National Park. If you enjoy photographing solitary trees, you're into minimalism, this is a great place to do that type of work. It's a beautiful location for somebody who enjoys both wildlife and landscapes. This is in autumn, and so those are aspen. You get amazing lines and color, that sense of endlessness, right? That expansiveness that you only see in this part of the country.
That's the Badlands.
For those of you who are into flowers, this is a beautiful place to do flower photography. This is not something I'm very good at. I don't have the patience because the wind is always blowing them, and then I get mad, and so then I want to do something else. But it is a very, very pretty place during spring to photograph flowers. This is one of the key characters of this place, and that is there's that sense of endlessness. And you need to be there and give yourself time and wait for the sky to do interesting things and the wind to do interesting things to capture that sense of endlessness. Prairie dog towns are one of the great spots to see all sorts of wildlife. So you'll see coyotes and bison there. Of course, you get to see prairie dogs, which are quite fun and entertaining to photograph. And every once in a while, you get young ones that don't realize they should be scared of you, or ones that like to dab, I guess. So, and out there, you will get burrowing owls living in the prairie dog towns. And so these are great places to spend some time. It's also a good spot to visit after you do your landscape in the morning. Give yourself an hour between 9 and 10, and then you're going to want to get out of there, especially if you're there during the summer, because it gets hot, and you'll want to find somewhere cool to have a nice cold drink or a nap, and then come back in the evening. I will say, of all the animals that I've photographed in the prairies, this is my favorite species. Do any of you know what this is? This is a pronghorn. Do you know what their closest relative is in evolutionary context? It's a giraffe. It's a giraffe. Yeah. How about what is their most unique characteristic?
Onwards.
They can run 60 miles an hour. They can run 60 miles an hour. There are no predators here that can catch them. So why do you suppose they can run 60 miles an hour? Show off? Someone said show off. What'd you say? No. But take that thread in a next level. There were. So we used to have an American cheetah, and there used to be an American lion like the African lion. And so they're remnants of the Pleistocene era when we used to have the mega carnivores here. And so this is just an evolutionary characteristic they've retained. They were, for a while, in trouble because farmers quartered off the land and they can't jump. So when there were fences, they got stuck in these segments. And so now farmers are a lot more sensitive to this. They have horns, but they actually shed their horns every other year. So, but they're not antlers. Again, I think they're just strikingly beautiful in their form. And every once in a while, you can find one that's tolerant that will allow you to, get some interesting compositions of them. And I watched the birth. So I watched the birth. This was a 6-hour project of watching the birth and then having it get up. You get 2 species of deer there. So you can get mule deer and you get whitetail. These are whitetail deer. And these are in Wind Cave. And this is mule deer. These were a pair of mule deer fawn that are looking at its mother just as the sun is setting. The other megafauna you get out there are bighorn sheep. And again, you get the opportunity to photograph them in a landscape that's very different than you normally see them. I strongly suggest, again, early and late in the day. It's striking to see them in habitats like this, though, where they are integrated into their environment. The last part of my look at the Badlands is the landscapes. And so if you're a landscape photographer and you like Death Valley, this is your place because it's got a very Death Valley-like character to it, but then there's green too. So you've got like all of that beauty in Death Valley, but then all of this beautiful green prairie to juxtapose and the drama of the skies. So that last shot was South Dakota. This is North Dakota. You can see that North Dakota is going to have more vegetation and less of that sedimentary rock. So again, this is North Dakota. And this is South Dakota. And it's a beautiful place to use both your wide angle and your telephoto to try to make unique compositions. This is just as the sun is setting. And so, if you are interested in going to this area, I strongly recommend fall. Fall is comfortable. You have shorter days, which means that you have less of that hot sun. And you have better, longer periods of sweet light, and you get weather. You get the storm clouds, you get the winds. This is the best time of year to be there. And the mammals are putting on their winter coats. So they're not going to be shedding. You're going to see them getting ready for winter. They look their best in fall. That ends the Badlands. Have any questions? So the balance of my talk is going to be wildlife in Minnesota. I'm going to take you all over the state. So we've already been to the Arrowhead. And so the Arrowhead, remember, is that point that looks like the Arrowhead. And we're going to go inland. I'm going to take you to the Sax-Zim Bog. So the famous Sax-Zim Bog where great gray owls are the star of the show. We'll also go north to Orr, Minnesota, which is probably one of the best places in the country to photograph bear cubs. I'm going to take you all the way to the western edge to a place called Blue Stem Prairie, where you can rent a blind for free to photograph prairie chickens. And then I'm going to take you to a project that I did in the Twin Cities. There are a couple of them. Actually, we're going to start there at a beaver pond that was 20 minutes from my home that I would go to every weekend. And I did this for 10 years. Just like here in the Merced, we have sandhill cranes, large populations of them. It's the greater sandhill crane, so they're slightly larger than the lesser sandhill crane. And we get the same amazing phenomenon of these flocks of thousands of birds coming in and the sounds associated with it. The state bird is the common loon. So they nest in Minnesota. This bird was nesting about 5-minute walk from my house, believe it or not, on a freeway. So to get this photo, I was actually lying on the edge of a freeway as cars were going 60 miles an hour, photographing underneath a barrier to be able to photograph her. I spent 2 years with her, so she came back 2 years in a row. I have pictures of her moving her egg around and her mate in the background, but I really like the reflection in this shot. The best way to see loons is to be on the water. So kayak and canoe. It's easy to be on a canoe and shoot these organisms. They give you such beautiful perspectives. If you like unique photography, if you like patterns, you can't beat loons. They just are strikingly beautiful and elegant. And when I see them here in Moss Landing, they look like they're ugly. They just look so ugly to me. I'm sorry. I'm excited to see them. But when you see them like this, it's hard to see them without all of their beautiful black feathers. This is the beaver pond that I spent 10 years photographing. You can see the Beaver Lodge out there. This is a 3-shot panorama. I've photographed the pond many times because I find it to be extremely picturesque. To get here, it's in a state park called William O'Brien, and there's kind of a secret entrance that I found. You have to hike uphill about a quarter mile and then downhill a mile to get to the pond. The uphill hike is a bit brutal, so you feel it, but it's worth it. Yeah. But yes, all the gear's on my back. But it's worth it. And you'll see why I say that when you see the wildlife that I've photographed here. So you get an idea of how beautiful the pond is. This is during fall. I was able to sit about 20 feet from the lodge, sit on the dam of the beaver, and I know generations of this beaver. It has come amazingly close to me, offered me wonderful reflections, allowed me to watch it eat, allowed me to watch it mate, and even let me know when it was mad at me. So this beaver pond, this beaver worked so hard. The DNR didn't like it, so they knocked down its dam. And 4 days later, the dam was back. And so the beaver was very persistent. Department of Natural Resources. So that's like, what do you call it? Your park and service, Fish and Game, California Fish and Game. That's our, Fish and Wildlife. That's our DNR. The beaver was so generous with its pond that it allowed geese to have babies there and ducklings. Also allowed the occasional grebe to come by and visit. And it even cohabitated with a muskrat. And one day I was there and I thought I was watching the beaver, and I realized that it wasn't a beaver, but it was an otter. And the otter actually was living in the beaver lodge for a while. So I was able to spend quite a bit of time photographing the otter from the dam of the beaver lodge. And so there's a river otter. In addition, the deer would come down from time to time. And in the uplands, you would see them as well. So this pond, when I put this presentation together, I have edited pictures for years, and I still have 20,000 pictures from this one. It just gave me so much joy because I could leave work and go there, spend an hour, and come home and feel fulfilled. I could go there on the weekends. It's what Natural Bridges is to some of you. It was the place that I would go that I know that I'd be able to make some pictures. We're now going to go to the Saxon Bog. Saxon Bog is, I am pretty confident that many of you have heard of this, is a very, very famous bog in the middle of Minnesota. When I first visited, I was a young college student, and it was just myself and my buddy. We never saw anybody else there, but in one day we saw a hawk owl, snowy owl, and great gray owl. We realized how special it was, and that was in 1994. By 2004, it became a tourist destination, and today it can be a zoo. So there are times where there are 50 people around a single owl. So you have to pick your time carefully. Best time to go there is January and February. The best weather for seeing owls is between 0 and 20 degrees centigrade, and when there's snow on the ground. The star of the show are the great gray owls, and you see them against these beautiful landscapes with lichen. I absolutely love seeing them in the snow, and they will hunt even if you are watching them. They don't care about humans, which makes them an amazing photographic subject, but it also makes it so that everybody goes out to find them. In addition to great gray owls, you can find hawk owls. Hawk owls are smaller than a red-shouldered hawk, but bigger than a screech owl. So it's a small owl that flies very, very fast. You can also see boreal owls. This year was a year where the boreal owls were there in big numbers, like there were 6 of them, and that's big numbers. These are owls that you see in Canada and the Canadian forest, and this is a rare sighting. Chances are you'll have to wait another 10 years to see boreal owls. So I was not there this year, but I saw this one 10 years ago. About every 10 years, there is an eruption of them coming down. And then you can see snowy owls out there as well. And this is one of the most beautiful photos of animals to photograph because you can create such beautiful minimalism against a snowy backdrop. So, and much like the great gray owls, they will hunt independent if you just let them go about their lives. In addition to seeing owls, you see call them Canadian jays or gray jays. So these are boreal species. Evening grosbeaks. You can see pine grosbeaks, pine siskins. If you're a birder, it's a great place to go. I'm not a birder. I'm a photographer. So I take pictures of things that are pretty to me. I don't go and try to find the birds. In addition, the red squirrels are there in very large numbers, especially near bird feeders. And much like the prairie dogs, they are like little comedians. They're a lot of fun to photograph. They have lots of expressions. And it turns out that there's a family of pine martens that live out there. And so you put a lot of work into it, but you can see a pine marten out there. And you can even see an ermine. Ermines are the tiny white weasels. So they can be found out there. This is a ruffed grouse, and the bog is, in my mind, best seen in the winter. But if you're a birder, going there in spring can be magic. So there are 15 species of warblers that nest out there. And so if that's something that you're really into, vireos, warblers, finches, there's just a very, very high diversity of bird species. That's the bog. If we go from the bog, so we're back at that map of Minnesota, and so we were kind of in this area. I'm now going to take you a little bit further north towards the national park, Voyageurs National Park. And there is a beautiful location to photograph bears. I'm going to just give you a brief story about the bears. This is the Vince Chute Wildlife Sanctuary. Vince Chute was a logger, and in the 1950s, he had a logging camp, and he shot every bear he saw. And he had done this for like 10 years straight. And then 1 year later, there were no bears. And the bears had disappeared. He had extirpated them. 2 years later, and he felt guilty about it. 2 years later, the bears started to come, and what he realized is they were going into his kitchen and stealing his food. So he ended up creating a scrap heap. And so he ended up actually like putting the scraps somewhere else, and the bears would go to the scrap heap and leave the logging camp alone. Well, this became a part of the bears' culture. So over the course of about 25 years, bears started to go through this tiny little patch. So when the DNR took over the land, they were going to just end this whole practice. And instead, a company bought out the land, and they set up an observation platform. And during the spring and summer, they put out bird seed and fruit, so watermelons, so that these bears that have been encultured to visiting come by. You can buy a photographer's pass and be on the ground with the bears, and the end result is you get the opportunity to make intimate photos of bears going on and doing their own thing. And it is probably the best place in the world to photograph bear cubs, where you can see one, sometimes two, or even three in a tree. And so this is an amazing location, because what happens is the females come in with their new cubs, they drive the cubs up the tree, and then they go and forage or mate, I've seen every behavior you could possibly imagine, wallowing in the mud, mating, nursing. It's an amazing place to photograph black bears. So that's Vince Shoe. If you go west towards North Dakota, you can go to Blue Stem Prairie, where you can see prairie chickens. And so prairie chickens compete. They compete for mates. The males fight aggressively. And what they fight for is about a 1 meter by 1 meter square. So you'll sit in a blind and you might see 10 males, each guarding their meter by meter square. And it's like they're challenging the nearby male to come into their spot. And as soon as one crosses a line, they'll attack. And so you get this kind of aggressive behavior. And the whole reason why they do that is the females, which you can see in the background, will kind of wander around. And as soon as the females wander around, the males will do their display, where they'll push out their patch and they'll show off. And the females will wander and then choose which male they want to fly off with. This is called a lek. So it's a lek breeding behavior. And this is one of the best places in the world. People pay a lot of money to go with famous photographers to photograph these birds. You can rent a blind for free at the Nature Conservancy. Get up and be there at 5 a.m. and see this amazing phenomenon for the price of nothing, for the price of a hotel room. Minnesota is famous for its deer. They protect their land mostly because the deer hunters like to hunt. There are pockets of Minnesota where the deer don't get hunted because they're in state parks or national parks, and the end result is you get deer with huge antlers, and so it's a great place to photograph bucks. This would be during October, during the rut. You also have the chance to see, when you have populations like this, unique deer. This is a piebald deer. So it's a deer that has multiple patterns. This was a fawn. I had photographed its mother for about 4 years. She knew me. And when she had this baby, she brought the baby to me and gave me the opportunity to photograph it. And I had photographed him for a number of years. And he died a year and a half ago. Had actually gotten stabbed by another deer in the gut and had a wound that he couldn't heal. Because the population is so large, you get the opportunity to see unique animals. I pass this deer on my commute almost every day of the week. And so she and I became friends as well. And I spent a lot of time photographing this albino deer. The last part of my talk is about minimalism. As I've matured as a photographer, I have tried to look at the world in a different way. And so I got very much into minimalism, trying to juxtapose my subjects against simpler and simpler backgrounds. And I would look for these opportunities to produce a unique artistic image of my wildlife subjects. And the snow allows for this. You can isolate your subject against these super simple canvases. One of the subjects that I love to photograph because of their shape and their form are swans. The winter is a great time to photograph swans. About 40 years ago, there were only 60 swans in the lower 48. Minnesota now has 50,000 breeding pairs. And so many of them overwinter there. And there are spots you can go where you can watch their natural behavior. And as I said, I just think the winter allows you to create very unique images of these animals. And the last part, as I continue my theme of minimalism, is tree bones against the stark landscape. That is the beauty of winter in Minnesota. This tree was on my commute, so it got a lot of images. So if you are interested in visiting, you may want to take a picture of this because the QR code goes to a link on my webpage, which then has links that you can click to get information about all of these different locations.
Could you just send roughly that page of content?
Of course.
On the flex?
Of course.
Great.
Yeah. And, but this will take you right there and it'll give you links to like Friends of the Saxon Bog and American Bear and all sorts of locations. And of course, you can email me. I'm happy to share that with you. And just a shameless plug, if you're on Instagram or want to check out my website, that's the relevant information as well. So I'm Bruce Leventhal, and that was Flyover Country.
Oh, yeah.
Are there any questions? Yeah.
In Minnesota in the winter time, we were talking about candidates, are they open?
Yeah. No, Minnesotans are hardy. Like they go up, people go up to these places to go cross country skiing or ice fishing. Like this is recreation time. Lots of places to stay. Yeah.
State bird?
Yeah.
Very active in the fall.
No, summer. It's summer. It's really bad. Spring you get deer flies by Lake Superior, but no, it's summers when it's really bad, especially up in the North Woods. Thanks for your attention. I hope it was interesting.
It's very good.